My name is Ron Strumpf, and this video is about using a background thread for long activities. With an Android application, your UI is driven by a single thread, so when you access the internet or anything else that takes a long period of time, then you want to run that process on a background thread so that you don't make your UI hang or your application appear sluggish. The application that I'm working on, it will present a daily weather forecast for a given time zone. And right now I've got dummy data that I'm pumping into it. I'm creating an array list, and then I'm setting that up in an array adapter. I put it into the list view. It operates the same way that the recycler did that we worked with in class, only the array adapter takes care of the scrolling, it takes care of the allocating the items just before they scroll in, and it takes care of deallocating them as they scroll out. What it doesn't do is the recycling, where it will reuse a view to keep from having to allocate new views constantly. So anyway, when this application runs, it comes up with the fake weather data that I put in there, and it's a scrollable list. So now I've changed the application so that it will call the weather service. That weather service will return JSON data, but all I'm going to try to do now is to display it in the list. But as we will see, when I tried to run it this time, it failed, and the reason that it failed is it's a runtime exception, unable to start activity component info because of network on main thread exception. So what that's saying is that by trying to execute a network service call on the main thread, that I have violated a rule of the Android operation, and so it has stopped me from being able to do that. So now I have modified the application. So the first thing I do here is I create a query task, and I execute the task to look up a zip code. And then I instantiate the array adapter and assign it to the list view, but I only put dummy data in it for now, and you'll see in a moment where the real data comes from. Use a background task, and I execute it, and I pass it a string parameter of the zip code where the weather forecast should be queried for. The OWS query task extends AsyncTask, which is a generic. The two functions that I've implemented from the AsyncTask are the do in background, which takes zip code that I'm going to query the data for, and it's going to call a function to get the data for the zip code. And anything that happens in do in background is done on a secondary background thread. The background thread code, however, is not able to touch the UI. And so in order to interact with the UI, then you have to use the onPostExecute member of the async task it'll synchronize it back up with the UI, and then whatever you do here is on the UI thread again. And so what this does is it gives you a very simple, you can see how simple this is to say, I want to do this action on a background thread, and I want to do this action on a foreground thread. And when I execute it, I want to pass this kind of a parameter to it. And when it gets done in the background, I want to transfer this kind of information to the foreground. And so the function creates a URL to ask for a weather forecast, returns that string from the function so that it can be passed to the foreground thread. The foreground then gets that string, it's synchronized with the UI, and so now it can do whatever it needs to do with the UI, so it builds the weather array adapter. When we run this application now, did not work. And why did it not work? Okay, so the reason that the task didn't run is because it had an exception on the do in background function, and the reason that it had an exception was because it had a security exception, permission denied, missing internet permission. To do that, you have to request permission to communicate over the internet. So now I'm going to ask for that permission and I'm going to rebuild everything. Okay, and as you see now, this is not my dummy data. It's only a 7-day forecast, so it doesn't scroll, but this is a true forecast for Sharpsburg, Georgia. Thank you for listening.